what changes for a player when they are named captain as opposed to before when they're just one of many leaders in a locker room, I guess?
Well, I guess there's more of a heightened sense of responsibility. I think you kind of take into account in most situations you try to what's the right expression, react in a leadership role or a responsible role. So again, I just think you take a lot more things into consideration that you may not normally, whether it's a call by an official or a situation off the ice with a teammate or whatnot, or just anything to do with the team. As the captain, you get a little bit more sense of responsibility regarding every situation for that matter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our next question is from Helene St. James of the Detroit Free Press.
Steve, thanks for doing this.
Yep, no problem, Helene.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Well,
what do you think of the expanded, it sounds like it's going to be a 23-man roster and possibly 4 to 6-man taxi squad. What kind of advantage can that be for a team?
I don't know that it's under the circumstance with the potential of players not being available on very short notice due to a positive test. Having that taxi squad around allows you to get somebody in the lineup immediately. Whereas if you're on the road or I'm not exactly sure what there's so many questions about the American Hockey League, whether they're going to play, who's playing, quarantining rules, bringing players up and down. So the taxi squad just is an extra layer to facilitate adding players to your lineup, whether it's COVID related or not. That guys are going to have to quarantine. So you keep them close by. They're ready to be recalled for whatever reason.
I guess
I don't know that it's not necessarily an advantage for any particular team, but just the ability to run your team, it probably made it a necessity.
I guess I'm thinking of it also from the perspective of, you have some young players trying to make the team. Even if they're not in the lineup, is there a benefit to them being practicing with NHL players on a regular basis?
Helene, that's a debate. Between are they better off? You mentioned these young players, for any player for that matter. You can only practice for so long before you want to play a game, So the debate is, it's early obviously yet, but how long you want to keep a guy on the taxi squad. I expect the taxi squad guys to play games in the NHL, dependent on injury, dependent on your own club situation, your ability to move players up and down without requiring waivers and whatnot. So the players on the taxi squad should play, but I debate the benefits of having a young player potentially practicing for 1, 2, even 3 months straight and not seeing a game versus loaning them to whether it's the American League or another league and they're playing regularly.
Last thing for me is just this play of guys like Moritz Seider and Jonathan Berggren kind of giving you hope that maybe they can come in and make the team better as soon as next fall. They seem to be having really good seasons in the SHL.
Yes. Yeah. Just off the top of my head right now, Moritz, Joe Veleno, Jonathan Berggren, Albert Johansson's playing well over there. Next fall, assuming we start next fall, it's obviously quite a ways off, but it's encouraging to see them do well. So, I do think it's just difficult to project kids that really have never played in the NHL before to project them today. They're going to be ready. We'll, eventually when we get back, we'll see them and they'll show us if they're ready or not. But at that time, it's extremely encouraging to see them doing very well as young players in what we think is a really, really good league in Sweden.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Justin Rose at WXYZ.
Steve, how you doing, man?
Good, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing well. Expectations for your team this year. A long layoff. How have guys been staying ready, and what are you expecting, kind of day one with this team, knowing where you guys are in your rebuilding process?
Well, I expect them to be energetic and enthusiastic. We've got a lot of changes in our lineup. I'm hopeful. I'm expecting them all to be in excellent physical condition. Um, again, we've made a lot of changes. It'll be interesting to see who plays with whom and how we do right off the bat. We're going to play a lot of hockey games. I'm excited to see the team, Justin. I can't really predict what we're going to be. Obviously, I hope we're improved from last year. How much I believe we'll be improved. How much, I don't know. But I'm just anxious to get going. But I expect the players to be in top physical condition, the best condition you can be in, not playing games. Playing games is a whole different level or type of conditioning. And I don't know that there's any way you can really replicate that from playing games. Having said that, I don't think it'll take all that long for them to get in game shape. You play, 2 weeks. I think I've had a first glimpse at the schedule. We'll play, I think 8 games in the first 14 days. The guys will be in game shape after that.
Kind of off that point, the time it takes for a team to gel, if you will. Is this kind of one of those, you want obviously them to start game one playing at the full level, but is this one of those teams that maybe every NHL team will be dealing with kind of that lag process of kind of getting into it with such a short training camp?
Yeah, we'll have roughly 14 days of training camp. No preseason games. They'll scrimmage some, they'll scrimmage a lot probably, but again, it's not the same as a regular game. It's funny, every year some teams get off to really good starts, others don't. Why that exactly is, I'm not really sure, honestly. You'd think you'd have we all have, every organization has a great off-season plan for their training camp and their preseason, and you never know how you start. But I believe the entire league, everyone's going to be enthusiastic. I would expect everybody to be in tip-top shape. Is there an advantage for the teams that played in the playoffs because they played more recently? I'm not sure. It's been quite a while since they've played too. So a lot of their advantage is probably worn off. So again, when the puck drops, roughly the 13th or the 14th, I'm anxious to watch the team play, and we'll see how, we'd love to get off to a good start. We all probably have our opinion what a good start for the Red Wings will be this year. But nonetheless, I'm excited, and I really don't know what to predict for us.
Thanks, Steve. Happy holidays.
Thank you. You as well.
Our next question is from Ansar Khan with M Live.
Hi, Steve.
My answer.
How beneficial was it for Zadina and Ronik, especially to play in Europe during this hiatus? And is there anybody else that you're planning on recalling out of the guys that are on loan in Europe?
Coming over from Europe, we'll leave Moritz Seider and Joe Velena will stay in Sweden until the completion of their team seasons. And apart from that, you mentioned both Phils and Gustav Lidstrom and Matthias Brome, a Swedish player we signed in the off season. They've been recalled. So none of the younger guys will come over, no.
And just can you just talk a little about? It looked like both Zadina and Ronik were very productive during their time there, and just how beneficial will that be in kind of getting a head start heading into camp for them?
Well, I believe, since the season started, or the hockey season started in September, I think it would be beneficial for all players to be playing as opposed to practicing. A lot of the NHL players, there's a lot of reasons why they don't go and play, and we don't let them go and play for that matter. But for the younger players that are trying to establish themselves, make an NHL team, it's important for them to play. So I think it's an advantage for these kids. They're playing a lot. I would assume Phil and both Zadina and Arona played got a lot of ice time. I expect them to be a little sharper. Now, having said that, the league they're playing in is not the NHL. It's a pro league and it's a men's league. This will be a significant step up, but I think I definitely know it's a benefit for them just to be playing games, shooting the puck in the net, playing in a lot of different situations. It just furthers their development as players.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Our next question is from Mike Stone with 97.1 The Ticket.
Steve, Merry Christmas. I don't know. Sorry about the dog. I don't know how much input you guys had on the divisions. Just it seems weird where Buffalo is in the East and, and Carolina is in the Central, and the other side where you guys get Dallas instead of Minnesota. Did you guys have any input on that? Because
No, we did not. No, I suppose we could have weighed in on it. We chose not to. I'm not sure our opinion would have really mattered. The league has, in some cases, has specific reasons I'm aware of where certain teams are in certain divisions. But ultimately, there wasn't going to be a perfect setup probably for us. So yeah, our division, there's a couple teams you might wonder why. Ultimately, we're not really losing any sleep over it. It's a little bit more travel for us, but again, under the circumstance, we're trusting the league did what they felt they had to do, and for various reasons. And I don't necessarily know all the reasons why a couple of the teams are in our division.
And the other thing with COVID, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have to have a third goalie standing by. Are you confident? Obviously, Bernier and Grace will be your top two. Who's the third goalie in the equation right now?
Well, yeah, you don't necessarily, you can carry a third goalie on your roster as one of your 23, or you at least have to have one on the taxi squad. So we'll debate how we work that, between Calvin Pickard and Boyle and nets for us, as well. We got as you mentioned, Grace Bernier. We'll kind of figure out how we use the taxi squad. It is dependent on what happens also at the American League level. So I don't know. At this time, we'll have a goalie at least on the taxi squad. We might even keep two on the taxi squad for that matter. Haven't quite figured it out yet. And some of what we do with the taxi squad will be dependent on what we're doing in the American Hockey League.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Carly Johnston with Red Wings TV.
Hey, Steve. Happy holidays. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Carly.
A couple questions. First up, looking at guys like Evgeny Svechnikov and Giovanni Smith, is this enough time, this training camp, is this enough time to look at them and for them to really make an impact? And also with the division realignment, how exciting is it to play a rival like Chicago more again?
Regards to the training camp, we'll have 13 days on the ice, 12 days on the ice probably. No preseason games. It's hard for the young guys that are trying to make the roster, or trying to make a really good impression. All they can do is show up in great shape and practice well. And ultimately this year, and I think this would go for most teams, honestly, you kind of project what your lineup is going to be, and then we'll have to make some decisions prior to January 13 on it. 1, 2, 3 guys. I'm not really sure, but it is more difficult for those guys to, normally they would get in 4 or 5 preseason games and they're battling for a spot with other guys. So, again, if they're not on if any player is not on the roster on the 13th, doesn't mean they can't be a week later or 2 weeks later. So it does make it more challenging, and really, in fairness to them all, judge based on practice, like who's having a better practice than the other guy who should be on the team. It's really difficult. Being in a division with Chicago, great city, we've had a great rivalry. The games are good because whether you have Blackhawk fans in the building in Detroit or Red Wing fans in the building in Chicago, they're very lively and entertaining games. At least to start, there won't be any fans, so that diminishes it a bit. But again, the original 6 matchups are great, and we're happy to be in the same division with them.
Awesome, Steve. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Our next question is from Larry Lage with the Associated Press.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Larry.
You talked about being excited about the team, and you made a ton of moves. Can you highlight a couple acquisitions or changes that you made that, just off the top of your head, you're most excited about or very excited about?
Well, all of them. How's that? And I want to temper my excitement. I don't necessarily have a favorite acquisition, if that's what you want me to say. We've made several changes, and all the players were very enthusiastic when we talked to them, prior to signing with the team. And that was very encouraging for me. So I think there'll be a lot of renewed enthusiasm. As you know, the majority of our players are on relatively short-term 1 to 2 year contracts. They've got a lot to play for, a lot of personal motivation. So things are different, and we got some different personalities. I look forward to really getting to know them. I don't know these players that well, other than talking to them a few times or maybe running into them at an event somewhere along the way throughout their careers. So I'm excited to spend some time with them all, get to know them, and as we kind of continue to remake and rebuild our team here. So.
Our next question is from Nick Katzanika with NHL.com.
Hey, Steve. Hope you're well.
Good, Nick. Thank you. You?
There's a quote that you gave us at the start of I think the return to play that really stuck in my head. You said, "We'll see who wants to be a hockey player," just because of the long layoff and the amount of motivation guys will have to have individually. So I guess my question is, how closely have you been able to follow guys and how they've used this time? Is anybody excite you for what they did in this time, and what do you want to see when camp opens?
Yeah, I think that probably that specific comment was more really directed at our younger players. Somewhat directed at all players, but really at the young guys. Like, again, in the summertime, throughout the summer, throughout the fall, you could find a lot of reasons why you couldn't skate, why you couldn't go to the gym, why you couldn't do this. Everybody has a reason. You and I have a reason why we can't do this or that. But for these guys, they can make an excuse, or hey, I don't have access to a strength coach, or I don't have access to ice. My point was, find a way, and we'll help you find a way. So mostly my contact and staying on top of the players is, we have a strength coach in Grand Rapids. We have a strength coach with the Detroit Red Wings, Sean Horkoff, Dan Cleary, Nick Cronwall. They're staying on top of the kids, staying in touch with them, checking in with them at all times. Our strength coach, I counted on them to make sure our players were in good spots, make sure they had what they needed. But ultimately, the players got to have the drive and the determination and the will to do it. And again, I say that, and we'll find out in 10 days when our players show up at camp. Unfortunately, we won't have a lot of the young kids here. We won't have any of them virtually here, so we won't know on them. But our development team and our strength and conditioning staff, they're the ones responsible. I believe the core, that small core of guys that we have with the Red Wings that have been here for a few years, after watching them for a season, the majority of them are pretty driven, and I'm expecting them to be in tip-top condition, and that I'm pretty certain of that.
I actually want to ask you one more thing. In the 80s, you actually had an ad on your Red Wings jersey, East Side, for East Side Sporting Goods. So I wanted to ask you how you feel about ads on the helmets, and if the Red Wings are going to have a sponsor and what it'll be.
I'm not sure if we will or won't. I know the league has discussed. I don't know that I should say planning, but I know it's a possibility. Whether the Red Wings do or not, and if we do, I'm not sure who it is. It's Nick. It's not my department. I'm in hockey ops. But it's an opportunity. One, we have to be creative. Obviously our revenues have taken a significant hit, and you're always, regardless, looking at ways to grow revenues. Any business, any industry is looking at ways to grow revenues, generate new revenues. So I expect it to occur. I don't know what our team or any team in the league will look like, but I'm expecting it, whether it's helmets. I'm not sure if they do jerseys this year. I don't think they talked about that, but you see it in Europe. You see it in the international events. I guess I don't really have too big of an issue with it. But I think it's a good opportunity to try it and see if we can generate revenue from it. And again, it's the norm in outside of North America in every league. It's the norm.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
All right, we have a few more minutes with Steve. Next, we'll go to Art Regner, DetroitRedWings.com.
Hi, Steve. First and foremost, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you and yours. You're
Thanks,
looking
Art.
good.
You
I
too.
love the hat. I have to say that. I just love that look on you. It's perfect. But with that said,
It's about as close as I could get to ever getting accepted at University of Michigan.
well, if you can somehow, if your schedule permits it, if you can go on a recruiting trip or two with Jim Harbaugh wearing that hat, I think you'll make quite an impact. But
Yeah.
we can talk about that later. But because Mel seems to be doing well with the Michigan hockey team as far as recruiting. But with all that said, seriously, is Rasmussen coming back or is he staying in Austria?
Oh, so yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, no, Michael is back. I believe he traveled on Monday, so he will be here ready to go for the start of training camp.
And finally, you said you got a peek at the schedule. It's 8 games in 14 days, I think you said. Is it going to be
Something
kind of
like that, Art. I got it here somewhere. I don't want to, and again, it's not finalized, so I don't want to be, talking about, but it's roughly 8 or 9 games in 8 games in actually 10 games in 18 days in January, it looks like.
So will it be the baseball type of schedule where the Red Wings could conceivably have like a 6-game homestand, play 3 different teams, and then go on the road for the same amount?
Correct. Most of them are, pretty much. Well, every city, it looks like every city we go to will play 2 games in that city and then go on to the next city and play 2. So we have, as it's set now, we have varying 2-game trips, 4-game trips, and 6-game trips. So 1, 2, or 3 cities.
And finally, will you have 2 sheets of ice at Little Caesars Arena, or will the Pistons impede you being able to do that?
You know what? I haven't seen the Pistons schedule as well. I'm kind of assuming that once the floor is laid for a basketball game, I don't think we would take it up just for take it off for practice. So again, we haven't worked through the details of preseason. Obviously, we'll have Belfour, but just as you asked me the question, I don't anticipate us having the ice available. If the floor is down, the floor will stay down until we're playing games. That's what I would expect.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, we have time for one more question from Ted Kulfin with the Detroit News.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for doing this.
Yep.
Hey, quick, just elaborate more on the taxi squad. Is that a little bit tricky? Because I mean, if you put a younger kid on there that may or may not play a lot this year and kind of hinder their development, I mean, is that going to be a little bit thought provoking as to who goes on there and whatnot?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we got to debate, what the unknown on the taxi squad is, how many games they're actually going to play. I just think kind of common sense tells you they're probably going to have to play. Guys are going to get injured. You cross our fingers. You hope nobody contracts the virus and can't play. But at certain points, guys get called up. Instead of being called up from Grand Rapids, they're going to get up from the taxi squad. Just how much or when, that's the unpredictable part. So, yeah, we really weigh, and we will, and we made no decision at this point, but figure out how we use that taxi squad. And are we better off with a young player like I would say McIsaac, but he's injured, a first-year pro or a second-year pro, any of those kids for that matter. Should they sit on the taxi squad and never play, or are they in the American League playing if they're playing? If the American League doesn't play, then we got to come up with another plan for them. So all those things, those decisions will be made over the course of the next 3 weeks and kind of figure it out. But yeah, in general, my own thought is I really want the young kids playing every night, playing on a team every night. Practice is great for a little bit, but day in, day out, all guys want to play, regardless of whether you're 20 or 30. They all want to play games, and anybody who's on that taxi squad, I just know after a while, it's going to be a bit like Groundhog Day for them. So, we kind of got to figure it out. And then ultimately you can even move guys from the American League or from into the taxi squad, transfer them back and forth. So lots of things to figure out. But in general, I think it's a necessity, and I thought it was a very good idea between the Players Association and the league to institute that program.
Hey, forgive me, I jumped on a minute or two late. I mean,
Yep.
is the roster all set in your eyes, or are you still poking around, or what?
Definitely poking around. Like I say that it's like I don't want you to sit there and waiting for us to make a move or anything like that. But you're always looking at ways to get ahead or improve, and we'll continue to do that right up until the regular season starts. So is the roster set? No, and I still, one or two of these young kids come in and do really well. That's a good thing, and it forces us to make a decision.
The last one, and this may be out of your pay grade, but just the fans in the stands. I mean, do you expect to have, it doesn't sound like there will be any at the start of the season, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming no. You probably really know as much as we do. It really is subject to local, state, and I'm not sure the federal government, but state and local governments, and we're not there yet. I don't know if or when we'll have fans. So right now we're going into our season with the idea that we're playing in empty arenas, with really not a plan, in place and for fans in the building until we know that that's a possibility.
Hey, thanks, Steve.